Thursday, March 19th, 2025 electronic meeting of the Ann Arbor Transportation Commission. This meeting is being held electronically, but we intend to conduct it similarly to an in-person meeting. Public comment will be via telephone or Zoom only. To speak during any of the public comment opportunities, please call 206-337-9723 and enter meeting ID number 934-6385-2907 or join via the Zoom link. This information is also available on the published agenda in the public notices section of the city website and on the broadcast of the meeting on CTN. Chris, if you could please call roll.
Not a problem. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we have received regrets from Councilmember Ackman, Commissioner Hutchinson, Vice Chair Fluwelling, Commissioner Conway, who will unfortunately not be able to attend this evening's meeting. I'll now call roll. Please say here and from where you're dialing when your name is called. Commissioner Brovin. Commissioner Brovin.
We can't hear you, Megan. We register your presence, I think.
Okay, not a problem. Commissioner Altomaki.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hook.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Jacobson.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Keeler.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Lee.
Here from Honolulu.
Commissioner
Wow.
Carpenter. Commissioner Carpenter.
Here, unfortunately not from Honolulu, just Superior Township.
Commissioner Zeker.
Here from Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Liu.
Here from Northwood Township.
Lieutenant Mike Sherba. Okay. Commissioner Margolis and Commissioner Stuka are also absent. With that, we do have quorum.
Thank
Hi,
you.
This is Commissioner Fluwelling. I was able to dial in.
Oh, okay.
Not a problem. I just made a record of that. Thank you for attending us this evening.
And I believe this is Rachel's first meeting, right? Is that true? I just wanted to welcome you. Welcome to the Transportation Commission. We're thrilled to have you and look forward to getting all of your thoughts, comments, questions on everything. So welcome. And, we're fairly informal. We try to follow Robert's rules, but please feel free to interject, ask questions, whatever you feel necessary. All right, so yes, we have a quorum. So let's first move on to the consent agenda. There are two items on tonight's consent agenda: approval of the agenda and approval of the minutes from the February meeting. Are there any modifications to the consent agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented? Moved by Eric, seconded by Megan. All those in favor, please say yes or raise your hand.
Yes.
All those opposed, please say no or raise your hand. The consent agenda is approved. Next up, public comment. This is an opportunity for people to speak for up to 3 minutes. Again, please call 206-337-9723 and enter meeting ID number 934-6385-2907 or connect via Zoom as described on the agenda. City staff will select callers that have raised their hand one by one using the last 3 digits of their phone number or the person's Zoom ID. In order to electronically raise your hand to indicate your desire to speak, please press *9 on your phone or select the raise hand button in Zoom. You'll hear an automated announcement that the host is allowing you to speak. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and mute any television or background sounds. Chris, do we have any members of the public who would like to speak?
I am seeing a few raised hands. Just a quick heads up, I will give you a 30-second Reminder, when your time is almost up. Councilmember Kathy Griswold, you have the floor.
Hello, this is Kathy Griswold calling from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I have 3 quick items. The first one is extremely serious. It is regarding the two-way cycle track that was put in that's being planned on Miller Road. Are you getting echoing from my phone? No. Okay, good. I have raised issues with the two-way cycle track. It is not recommended, given all the conflict points on Miller Road. It is not recommended, even if you use an AI package. I have asked staff to reevaluate it. Nothing has been done. I asked that it be put on the agenda for tonight. That wasn't done. And I'm very sad to report that my only alternative at this point is to report it to the state through Lara tomorrow. That's the only way that it can be flagged. And we have to realize that while this is in Ann Arbor, crashes negatively impact people that live outside the city of Ann Arbor, both as victims and also as drivers. So I'll wait until noon tomorrow if anyone wants to contact me. But doubling down is not a good solution. And we really need to have a discussion and evaluation by a traffic engineer. Number 2, Chapter 40, Section 3.14, which requires clearing of vegetation in our public walkways as well as on corners to provide sight distance, has been ignored by the city for a few years, and I've been told that it was going to be rolled into the comprehensive plan. However, the people working on the comprehensive plan have no knowledge of that. So I think the Transportation Commission may be the appropriate place to look at that. So again, that's Chapter 40, Section 3.14. Lastly, I would like to mention 2 crashes that occurred. On February 6th, there was a serious injury crash at Green in Burbank. That's an area that's been monitored and improved over at least the last 20 years and had been a school crossing. With work planned on Nixon Road, Green is only going to get busier, so that's a problem. The next crash was on March 11th on Plymouth Road. That was a fatal crash, a woman who was out of state. So I really hope that the Transportation Commission takes the time to at least look at these serious injury and fatal crashes that are occurring in Ann Arbor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm seeing Molly Kleinman. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you all here. I am Molly Kleinman. I am a former transportation commissioner. I live in Ward 4, right near Packard. I'm calling about 2 planned sidewalks that are coming in right in our neighborhood. One on Brockman and one on Crestland. They're part of the same project. And there have been a handful of really loud, really angry property owners who've been trying to stop these sidewalks using a variety of excuses. Their most recent excuse is trees. They switched to trees after complaining about the sidewalk prioritization process didn't work. I'm here to speak for the sidewalks. I'm here to say that especially Brockman is a route to not 1, not 2, but 3 schools, Tappan, Pattengill, and St. Francis. And I regularly see kids walking in the street in a section where there are major turns, where there's parking of large trucks on both sides. It's extraordinarily dangerous, and sidewalks are desperately needed. On Crestland, I actually was the petitioner for the sidewalk on Crestland. I petitioned when my oldest child started at Pattengill, and we started having to walk through that sidewalk gap every day. She doesn't go there anymore. By the time this sidewalk goes in, neither of my kids will go there. But I still believe that it is an incredibly important sidewalk. It's an incredibly important route to a school. I think there have been fewer complaints about Crestland, but I want to make sure that both streets are included in this project and that there is no further delay. We have waited long enough for these sidewalks. We don't need any more studies or evaluations. We need sidewalks and safe routes to school. Thank you.
Thank you. Always good to hear from you, Molly.
Okay. I'm seeing Adam Yashkevich. The floor is yours.
Hi, this is Adam Juskevich calling from Las Vegas Drive in the 4th Ward. First of all, I don't think we should be using AI to make decisions about whether to install a cycle track. I'd also like to mention that we've had yet another pedestrian killed by traffic violence in Ann Arbor. We need to look for improvements that can be made on Plymouth between Green and US 23. We need to reduce speeds, remove lanes, and add crosswalks. I would also like to talk again tonight about the Brockman and Crestland sidewalk gap filling project. This is an important walking route to 3 different schools, Tappan, Patton Gill, and St. Francis. As such, it is important to fill this sidewalk gap. Ann Arborites deserve the connected, safe, accessible, and direct sidewalk network that we are paying for through our property taxes. I'm happy that staff has found a way to build these sidewalks within the public right-of-way while preserving most, if not all, of the trees. And that to me seems like a win-win. Things I have heard suggested by some residents include delaying this project until it can be done simultaneously with a traffic calming project. This traffic calming petition was submitted after the sidewalk gap came up for filling, so this street is at the bottom of the queue. This project already will not be started until 2026, and tying it to a traffic calming project that's at the bottom of the queue is an unacceptable delay. I urge this body and staff to keep moving on the current project as is. Traffic calming can be done after the sidewalk is built, and traffic calming should be done. I also find it interesting that this neighborhood rejected a traffic calming petition a number of years ago, as shown in documents obtained under the Freedom of Information Act. Setting aside Ann Arbor standards to build sidewalks that are less than 5 feet wide. This would make the sidewalk less accessible. The fact that substandard sidewalks exist is no reason to build new sidewalks that way. We have sidewalks with steps on them. We wouldn't build a new sidewalk with steps in 2025. These old school solutions have no place today. We must build accessible sidewalks. Placing sidewalks against the curb. This is not safe or accessible. Sidewalks need a buffer separating them from cars. There are a few places in town where right-of-way constraints make this necessary, but that's not the case on Brockman. Sidewalks should have a tree lawn separating them from cars, and it looks like there's plenty of room for that within the right-of-way. Please ensure these sidewalks are built without further delay and built to the full standards of other Ann Arbor sidewalks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm seeing Eric Ivanchik. I hope I'm not butchering your name. The floor is now yours.
Hi, thank you. My name, my name is Eric Ivanchik, and I'm calling in from the 3rd Ward. I want to make it clear that absolutely no delay is acceptable with respect to the building of the Brockman sidewalks and the Crestland sidewalks as well. Brockman is a walking route to 3 area schools, Patton Gill, St. Francis, and Tappan, and our community's school children deserve safe walking routes to and from school. That the construction isn't slated to occur until 2026 is already much too long to wait. Furthermore, the sidewalk should not be up against the street, but there should be a clear buffer between the sidewalks and the streets. I recently learned why the standard is to have 5-foot wide sidewalks, and that is so 2 people in wheelchairs can pass each other comfortably. Ann Arbor has embraced the idea of all ages and abilities for our transportation network, including our sidewalks. Some of the people who live on Brockman and who are advocating for delay say their street is one of the most beautiful in the city. I live on Towner Boulevard, a stone's throw away from Allen Elementary, and I see kids and their families walking to and from school throughout the school year safely on sidewalks. I think that is beautiful. In addition to the inherent beauty and the humanity of the scene, it clearly demonstrates that we as a community care about one another, and we make efforts to look out for the well-being of the children in our community. So no delay on the Brockman sidewalks or the Crestland sidewalks, and include buffers between the sidewalks and the street. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'm not seeing any raised hands. I think we're okay to proceed.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all the members of the public for coming this evening and speaking. Your comments are valuable, and thank you to those who sent emails to our attention. There were, I believe, 16 email messages included in the packet, so thank you for all of those as well. Please take a look at those. All right, next up, business for the month of March. There is not any business items for us to be voting on today, so we'll move on to our information and discussion section. The first topic there is multi-lane street reconfiguration project update with Trevor Bryden. The city issued a request for proposal for this project and received proposals from 3 consultant teams. Staff reviewed the proposals and is preparing for city council approval on a contract with Tool Design Group. And Trevor is here and is going to provide us a progress update on the project. So Trevor, I believe the floor is yours.
Very much, Brett. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to share my screen. And it should be up for people to see. Does it have that toolbar up at the top? Move that away. All right. So I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the proposed work for the multi-lane road reconfiguration evaluation project that is going to be kicking off whenever we're able to get the consultants under contract. Sorry. Okay. So starting off, the purpose of this project is to evaluate all city-owned multi-lane roads for potential roadway reconfigurations to advance the moving together towards Vision Zero goals. This includes safety and lowering speeds and lower vehicle speeds, improving transit operations, and creating more comfortable walking and biking environments. Why look so closely at multi-lane roads in Ann Arbor? There's a big general reason, and I'm expressing this through this trilemma of speed, access, and safety. You can only pick 2 in general. If you have a road with lots of speed and you're going to make it safe, you need to separate all users in time and space. It makes for very broad and large facilities. Think freeways, think railroads, other things like that. You could have speed and access and safety together. That's the opposite. Things that are very tight and small and have lots of multimodal access. Or you can mix speed and access together, but you're going to sacrifice safety. This is more suburban style, high speed commercial developments with lots of driveways and curb cuts and things like that. Now, Ann Arbor has less of that type of development than some other areas in the state, but we still have some of these. We have 10 corridors that are multi-lane roadways that allow more than one directional lane of traffic going at the same time. These are roadways that we observe higher crash frequency and severity. These are roads that have been identified as needing to have speed management treatments placed upon them. And there's other beneficial uses of the right-of-way that we can make use of, such as reserving space for higher level transit services, creating separated networked cycling routes, and placemaking. So how does this fit with speed management? Our speed management initiatives are various. It's something that has been of concern to our department and to the community for quite a while. And so looking at all the ways that we touch on speed management from local to a more corridor level, we look at filed traffic complaint questionnaires to record and make notes where bad behavior has been taking place. We have a neighborhood traffic calming petition that has been pretty long-standing. That's attached to a traffic calming program that is annually executed and has a couple projects that move forward every year. We have a school traffic calming toolkit that is based around schools, where we take a look at the roads that are most likely to be used by users of the school facility in the local area, and think through the types of treatments that would make those routes safer. We have capital projects. In every capital project, we look at speed management and try to create an outcome speed at the end of it that will provide safety for all users. And that's usually tacked upon a utility or other pavement project that is already going on. And we also have a traffic safety corridor program with police. This is more of an enforcement program that is based around our highest areas of severity. Familiar as well, these are Washtenaw around the Arborland area, West Jackson, West Stadium area, and then I'm sorry, I'm missing the third one out of my memory, but there's one more.
Packard, I think is that what you're thinking, Packard?
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you. So finally, we have this major street screening process that has been developed through the work of the Moving Together Towards Vision Zero plan that shows various streets that have could be available for traffic calming, but we have needed to we have a toolkit, but these basically act as inputs to other capital projects that would be going on. So there's no specific program laid out to reform these streets ahead of a capital project. I want to just take a little second to dwell upon this for a second, because this kind of explains some of the approach that we're taking to this study. Major street implementation has I'm making two general statements here. Their transportation features are integrated into all city work, like the capital projects. So every time we touch a street, we are looking at speed and calming speed. Also, transportation features do not have internal resources to lead major project work often. And so we follow along capital projects like Miller Avenue, in which we are overlaying speed management on top of a capital project. Again, this is led by utilities and pavement needs. We have development agreements. When a developer comes in, we take a look at our plans and see what impacts that development will have and how that can help advance our plans. Some of these have pretty significant impacts, and so we can ask for quite a bit, but they do have limited geographic reach. And finally, there's also grant funding that we pursue in the form of various federal grants, the largest of which is Safe Streets for All. Grant funding adds additional obligations. Whoever is releasing the grant will have certain expectations for what will happen with it. That often suits many of our goals, but it adds complexity and time. And as of now, the federal government is a less reliable partner in these types of grant funding arrangements. So in 2023, the City Council passed a resolution to accelerate safety improvements on multi-lane roads. This reaffirmed Vision Zero and A20 goals. It instructed us to look for opportunities for lane reductions in city projects. It asked us to develop a plan for evaluation of all multi-lane city roads for reconfiguration, and to partner specifically with transit agencies to make sure that bus operations are integrated features into this evaluation on priority routes. So we really wanted to not just take space and narrow it and have it be worked in for other uses, when transit will have an important role to play in a couple of years, supplying needed additional service on those roadways that are expressed in their plans. So when we looked at this was quite a task, and so we took a look at a couple of possible approaches. Previously, we've looked at these types of challenges as individual studies. South Main Street is an example in which we take a look at a specific corridor, we study it, we have project level engagement, and we do detailed engineering and design, and that happens corridor by corridor, piece by piece, one at a time. The second approach we considered was more of a traffic citywide citywide traffic modeling approach. Because we are looking at 10 corridors, they will have interactions together, and rearranging the space and their use and function all at once will create some spillover effects that modeling could have some way of giving us some information about, and perhaps mitigating some of those effects. Now, the modeling is very data intensive, and traffic models tends to be not so sensitive to things like transit, walking, and cycling, which are along the lines of our goals for mode shift. What we did embark on is more of a planning level corridor evaluation. The advantages for this approach is that it allows us to evaluate all the multi-lane corridors at once. It will be a less detailed evaluation than the corridor-specific approach, but it will allow us to search for present-day opportunities. We'll be collecting data from present-day circumstances and trying to analyze and trying to piece together the opportunities for where there is currently space that is less used by the existing circumstances. And we're focusing the study analysis on especially the intersecting multi-lane corridors that are going to have the more complex relationships. We're trying to cut down the middle between being too specific and too general here. We released an RFP. The introduction very nicely laid out our process for this. The proposal that we're seeking to award with Tool Design, a national firm that does these types of evaluations and road reconfigurations across the U.S. They proposed a work plan with 5 elements that seem fitting for this project. These elements are safety. These are focusing on these high severity crash corridors. Workforce mobility. There's a lot of people, 80,000 people about that come into Ann Arbor every day for employment during the daytime, and we would like their travel to be safe and reliable. Transit. We need to, like I said, design space for future transit features. Our cycling network, our multi-lane corridors are oftentimes the most direct route to get places and connect with other cycling corridors. And so, but these multi-lane roadways often have high speeds and high level of stress. And at the same time, they're proposed for all ages and abilities bike routes, many of them. Also, looking at traffic volumes and where lane reductions are feasible according to the guidance. And we're looking at traffic volumes, not just seeing the most peakest hour of every peakest day, but also trying to take a look at the range of where those peaks are, how long they last, and where there may be space in those peaks to do some shifting, time shifting, and other things like that can have some relief on the demands of the road system. We asked the consultant, our future consultant, to help us design this method somewhat. We had an idea about the general size and shape of it. The proposer for Tool Design proposed centering city goals to safety and mode shift, to recognize the benefits and trade-offs that happen with any redesign that takes place. And so to look eyes wide open at what we could get out of it, as well as what downsides we might be trading off, so that we make an eyes wide open decision about things. Each corridor will have a couple of different options based on mode priority and other trade-offs to take a look at and weigh some options against. And we'll be looking at some proposed metrics like person throughput, which is the number of absolute people you can get through, that doesn't penalize transit for being one vehicle and counting as one vehicle in a transit circumstance. Can be up to 50 people. More than likely, it'll be a dozen or so, or depending on the time of day. But it also includes all the people walking and all the people biking around these corridors as well. We're looking at vehicular volume and capacity, like I said, not just to try to privilege the motor vehicles in there, but actually get an idea about the size and shape of the peak hour demand to things, to see where we can relieve some stress. and be able to have a workable situation for everyone while using that space for other purposes. Take a look at the crash reduction that's anticipated, the crash modification factors for the interventions, as well as the ped and cycle difference in the level of stress, and any transit service enhancement that can be conceptually designed with this. The consultant proposed grouping these corridors, these 10 corridors together into a couple categories to help us define our focus. Some of them are going to be defined as opportunity corridors. These are the ones with the least complications to them. And so taking a higher level look at those and having more typical cross sections and things like that come out, rather than more detailed designs. There's going to be some challenging corridors that, due to higher peak hour traffic volumes and capacity constraints at key intersections, a roadway configuration that reduces travel lanes could result in traffic diversion on other major routes or into more local streets. These segments might require some additional consideration for how to mitigate that very, very peak hour traffic to help reduce some of these trade-offs. These will need to be taking a closer look and will be the emphasis of our data collection and analysis. And then finally, the transit corridors with priority for high level transit infrastructure that can be best achieved with travel lane reassignment. These are kind of like the ones that are going to be a little bit different because we know that transit is going to be the priority on those corridors already. We're looking at some final deliverables. Where will this get us? And this doesn't get us all the way down to where the single corridor studies would get us all the way down to some engineering design in which we can go out and build. It will give us more conceptual designs across these 10 corridors. They'll get some typical cross sections, some more analysis for alternative options for the challenging corridors, and more attention to transit stop and pedestrian access for transit corridors. And we'll get some planning level cost estimates so that we have a good idea on all of these corridors. When there is interest in advancing a project towards design and construction, that we have an idea about what the modal priority is, some of the key interventions that will need to take place in order to realize the concept. One last slide about the timeline. We are going to scheduled for council April 7th in 2025. And this project has proposed 1 year of work, approximately spring 2025 to spring 2026. The basic flow of the study will be data collection at first. In the summer, we'll be looking at advancing some analysis method. We'll be forming analysis methods and conducting analysis. Summer to winter 2025 will be developing concepts and really starting to work public engagement in to get more reactions once there's some things to see. And then finally, in the winter, spring 2026, finalizing these concepts and producing the reports. So that there was a desire to, because this is kind of like somewhat of an abstract study, somewhat it's to the heart of our goals and values here, but still a bit of a odd isn't quite the word, but this isn't a typical study for these types of things, and so wanted to give this commission a overview of what this will be, so you're aware of it and our motivations behind it and the reason for the approach that we're taking for this. My contact information, that ends my prepared remarks for this. Mr. Chair, if I'm here to take any questions as the commission has them.
Sure. Questions from anyone? Comments? I'll kick it off. I assume that of the 10 corridors that are going to be included in the study, are they looking at segments of each corridor, or are they treating each corridor in its entirety as a candidate? For example, are they just saying, will they have the capacity to say maybe the entire corridor wouldn't be able to handle it, but this segment of it could?
I guess my response is a broad yes. We've broken them out into 10 corridors because that's easy geographically end to end what to do. Along these corridors, there is some diversity of circumstance, and so there could be areas in which there are some easy things to do, and some areas where there are some harder things to do. And I suspect that the concepts will be responsive to that, and because really we're trying to identify the hard areas to be able to put more attention to, and leave the easy areas out. So if there is a section of a longer corridor in there that is especially easy and one that's especially hard, I could see us making that decision. But in general, it is trying to get us to the point where we have a good solid idea about what most of the corridor layout could be, and if there are challenging points, to dig in and try to resolve some of the issues in the more complicated points, and put the bulk of our energy and attention into trying to think through some of the hard problems there.
Thank you. Pete.
Thanks for the presentation, Trevor. How hard would it be to add North Main, Jackson, Washington on Huron at this point? Can we?
Gotcha. North Main, Jackson, Washington, Huron are all state trunk lines, and those were intentionally not included in this study due to them being state-owned trunk lines and not wanting to dig in too far on a road that the city can take no immediate action on should we want to do it. Plus, they are wrapped into ongoing studies and negotiations with the MDOT for a jurisdictional transfer. Plus we have a North Main study already up. It's not up and running yet, but with it we have a proposal RFP out for a North Main study in particular that will be handled separately. And the Washtenaw corridor is the ride's top priority for transit service. And we have been in conversation with the ride and knowing that transit service is the top priority for that corridor for us as well. Wanting to partner with the ride on whatever advancing study that may come out to advance bus rapid transit on that Washtenaw corridor. So the state roads were set aside for this case, leaving it to the other multi-lane city roads to be the focus of this study.
Okay. I guess I'd like to offer an alternative perspective that that the results of this study might inform our decision about how badly we want those trunk lines. If the study shows that we could that if we had control, we could make really good improvements in reconfigurations on those trunk lines, then we might really want to go after it. So that's just my perspective I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Rachel.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that presentation, Trevor. One basic question is, will this map be available in a slightly more granular form for us to take a look at later on?
Sure.
And
we didn't produce any maps of ourselves. The proposals came with a couple maps. This is tools map. It is scrunched in and things like that. During the study, there will be better maps available. I can get you a list of all of the.
Yeah, even just a list would be great. Yeah,
okay,
for sure. And then a couple more substantive. I'd love to hear a little bit more about any public engagement methods that you're planning that may be different from, public engagement that's been done on transportation studies in the past, or if they're all the same, that's totally fine too. I also, it's like, we have some plans or aspirations that the city has already expressed that align with this. You talked about that in the beginning of your presentation. I guess I'd just love to hear you say a little bit more about your expectations for how the assessment might kind of align with those plans or possibly conflict. If you could give like a few more details, and maybe there's specific corridors where you're like, yeah, we definitely need more data, or other ones where you're like, we know it's probably gonna confirm what we already think is gonna be useful here. And on those same lines, it would be helpful for the traffic diversions. So just like maybe have an example or a couple more details on like exactly what you're already worried about. Or if you don't, if you definitely won't know until you get the data, that's okay too. But if you have some ideas already that you can share, that'd be helpful.
Gotcha. So that was quite a multi-part question.
No, it was three. It was three. I will. Yeah, it wasn't really just one question.
I'll endeavor to answer those, and you can remind me of what I've missed.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
So for engagement, we have an engagement toolbox, a standard that we use that I'm going to mess up the initialization, but an internationally recognized standard that tries to match the questions that we're seeking from the community to the engagement that we're doing. So with this is expressed kind of like the community has already expressed an interest in speed management and lane reductions in many areas, and so we are going to be doing more website setup and pop-up event type awareness stuff at the beginning phase. Once we get down into the summer and the winter and have concepts, we'll be doing more open houses and surveys and events that are more broadly based to seek that type of input about what people think about different concept designs and areas that we might have missed. So it'll be pretty similar to other engagements that we've done in the past, both in the city or the DDA. Probably a little bit much more scaled down than the downtown meetings were for the downtown area circulation study and the comprehensive plan, just because this is a bit of a smaller operation here. But we definitely are learning lessons from the various engagements that we've had over the past couple of years of that style. The diversion factor is something that we know will happen, especially upon first implementation. People's patterns will change. They'll change in time. They'll change en route, and we will see various things until we hit a different equilibrium. If we choose or happen to create a circumstance in which there is lots of queuing and backup and side streets are available to cut through to another place, we know that people will avail themselves of that. I think there are places throughout that around the city, some of which I could probably speculate and know, and others of which I won't know until others will point it out to me necessarily. But that'll be something that we are going to be scanning and looking for and thinking about how critical that is a factor. It's kind of like more of a value judgment. How much do we want slower speeds and traffic funneled into a few corridors versus traffic that are higher speed and channeled into a few major corridors versus ones that during peak hour could become oversaturated and seek alternate routes through the city. And what is the behavior like of people that are choosing those routes? Are they treating the alternate routes with respect, or are they shifting dangerous behavior to other areas? And I'm not sure we know the answer to that quite yet. And would you remind me of the third part of your question? I think I skipped over the middle portion.
Yeah. No, thanks. And that was super helpful. I think the last question was about whether any planned projects that align with the nature of the assessment, if you have any expectations for ways in which the assessment might align with projects that are already planned, versus where you're like, we definitely need more data because we think we might, have a conflicting finding.
Gotcha. We're going to want to collect some pretty comprehensive data on these to be able to kind of compare apples to apples. But there are other projects. There's a sense in which the multi-lane road evaluation was going to, or is dovetailing with the Safe Streets for All speed management and quick build progression pretty well. It's being attached to a federal grant for that work. There is a need to get through the environmental process in a way that makes the touches that we're doing for that work a little bit lighter, and the roads that are being pursued more of the 2-lane, 1 lane in each direction style. And so if you were to overlay the map of the ones we're studying with the map of the potential quick build interventions, it creates a pretty comprehensive picture of most of the roads in the city that are these like major through road type roads. And so, and that's something that we're going to be back and forth in communication with. And I think the other way that this attaches, Peter hinted at this, that the trunk lines are always on our minds as well, and wanting to have the same philosophy and approach and knowledge and experience that we gain from this type of evaluation and these community conversations to be able to gain momentum and inform things like bus rapid transit on Washtenaw, which is all of these projects here would be community transformative, but the Washtenaw bus rapid transit would be like county transformative. It's to a whole nother scale of the value that it could bring.
Thanks. Sounds like you have lots of plans for the data beyond just figuring out what might be the best concept. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? All right. Well, with that, I want to thank you again, Trevor, for coming by and presenting all this to us. I personally very much look forward to council approving this contract and then starting to see the engagement sessions and see what designs and recommendations come out of it next year.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
All right. All right, moving on to the next topic, 5th Avenue between Madison and William project and designing for all ages and abilities. There are multiple construction projects along 5th Avenue this year, including underground utilities and pavement resurfacing. So Cynthia is here to provide an update on the ongoing work and exploring alternative cross-section designs. So Cynthia, the floor is yours.
Sure. I guess my first point is going to be a little bit of a clarification. I'm actually going to walk through our all ages and abilities bicycle network and design selections and how that works. And then I will talk a little bit about some stuff that's going on with 5th Avenue.
Great.
I am going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint, which you will notice has some striking similarities to Trevor's because we have a standard that we use now. All right, and as I said, this is my introductory slide. I'm going to be talking about our All Ages and Abilities Bicycle Network in an overview and then have a design example. My name is Cynthia Redinger. I am one of the transportation engineers in our department. We recognize that we do have some commissioners who have joined since we last presented about this topic. So we wanted to just give an overview and bring everyone up to speed. I'm going to apologize. I am coming down with a cold. I do have a lozenge in my mouth, so if I'm difficult to understand, please let me know and I will spit it out. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward. So our first slide reads mobility goals and values. And this slide has all of the major goals and values from our transportation plan, along with the little icons that accompany those in the transportation plan if you happen to be perusing it. Those are safety, which is Ann Arbor is a safe city where everyone participates in creating an environment in which people feel confident and comfortable traveling. Mobility. Ann Arbor prioritizes moving people and goods efficiently and making it easier for people to choose sustainable modes of transportation. Accessibility for all. In Ann Arbor, people of all ages and abilities and stages of life, income, races, cultures, and ethnicities have equitable access to the places where they live, work, and play. And healthy places and healthy people and sustainable places. Ann Arbor's transportation system supports healthy populations, sustainable environment, and robust economy while celebrating and enhancing a unique quality of place. And regional connectivity. So Ann Arbor works to expand travel options throughout the region and integrate its transportation system into wider regional networks. And I bring these up because I think it's always important for us to reflect on those mobility goals and values as we are looking at how we conduct our business. This next slide includes the 22 key mobility strategies. Larry, please forgive me. I am going to not read through all of these, but I want to focus on number 6, which is the key mobility strategy that we are addressing tonight, and that is to build out a safe, comfortable network of bike routes for people of all ages and abilities. All right, our next slide addresses strategy 6, which are our bike routes. And it reads that our timeline is to be short, 0 to 3 years, that we're supposed to be starting to work on this. The lead agency from the plan is Engineering and Transportation. Our active targets for the network are to install 5 miles of new and upgraded all ages and abilities routes each year, and complete the full all ages and abilities bicycle network by 2035. You can see our annual update and our annual snapshot. And this slide also shows our overall network, proposed network, which gives the different types of facilities that we expect to have in the network. Trails, local roads, minor streets, and also major streets. Local, minor, and major streets are all within the right-of-way and under our control. Trails are typically in our parks, and we work on those in partnership. All right. Whoops, I missed one. This slide reads, what does all ages and abilities mean? And it provides a variety of images of different types of folks who are using cycling network. It also reads, all ages and abilities, A3, cycling networks are systems for safe, comfortable, and connected bikeways designed to make cycling accessible to as many people as possible, including children, older adults, and people with disabilities. Features are low stress, multiple routes, that they're efficient, and they are connected. And once again, we are trying to create an environment where as many individuals as possible will feel comfortable cycling, whether they're using an adaptive cycle, whether they're using a cargo cycle, whether they're cycling with individuals of multiple ages. So what are our proposed route types? My apologies. This is a slide I actually intended to delete because it's not put out there very clearly. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward into our local streets. So our local streets are streets that are 25 miles per hour or less and less than 3,000 vehicles per day. And as the slide reads, these streets would be places where cyclists and motorists share spaces. In our toolkit, we have multiple tools for these streets. Our first tool that is listed here reads Bike Boulevard. And we design features that discourage vehicle through trips and design features that encourage safe speeds and facilitate a comfortable experience. The slide shows an image of a bicycle boulevard in Vancouver, Canada. Because we don't have any in town yet, we are looking at Washington as one of our first bicycle boulevards. But once again, that would be a shared space between motorists and cyclists. Another tool in this toolkit are shared lane markings. And shared lane markings, also called sharrows, it's the bicycle with the two arrow points. And they really designate a preferred route for cyclists and raise awareness among motorists. They should expect cyclists. And they indicate where in the lane the proper riding position is. It's very important to use that tool in some places because sometimes we want cyclists to use the full lane. And sometimes we need them to position themselves on one side of an intersection so they'll be in a better place on the other side of an intersection. So there are lots of uses for that tool. Our next set of tools are for minor streets, and minor streets are streets that have speeds of 25 to 30 miles per hour and less than 10,000 vehicles per day. So these streets will have dedicated cyclist spaces. And two of our tools that are in the minor streets toolkit that are listed here are striped or painted bike lanes. And these demarcate a portion of the street for cycling. And they may also include green paint at conflict points. And the next tool is contraflow bike lanes. And these are also striped or painted bike lanes that provide two-way bicycle travel on one-way streets to improve cyclist connectivity. And design areas of focus for these elements include turning conflicts at driveways and intersections. And the slide is accompanied by an image that shows some individuals cycling in a contraflow bike lane. And it's an image from pedbikesafe.org, and it was provided by Tool Design Group. The last tool in our minor streets toolkit are our buffered bike lanes. And these tools demarcate a portion of the street for cycling while creating greater separation between cyclists and motor vehicles. So all of these tools are relatively easy to install and can frequently also be installed as a test case because they are pavement markings and so we are able to get them in with new projects. Our next set of tools are for our major streets. And these are streets that have 35 miles per hour or greater speeds or greater than 10,000 vehicles per day. So even if we were looking at a lower speed street that had higher volume, we would be looking at tools in this particular toolkit. As the slide reads, these are physically separated cyclist spaces. And the first tool is protected bike lanes. So these are facilities that run at street level, but are physically separated from vehicles. And I have three potential ways that you can provide that separation, which is flexible delineators, parking lanes, curves or concrete medians. And areas of concern include turning conflicts at driveways and at intersections. And the next tool is raised bike lanes. And these are lanes that run at sidewalk level and are separated from vehicles and from pedestrians. The image that accompanies this slide is of our William Street two-way cycle track, and it also shows some cyclists of a variety of ages, including a young child. The last tool in our major streets toolkit is our physically separated cyclist spaces. So these can be off-street shared use paths. These are shared use paths are bike and ped facilities that are physically separated from vehicles by open space or barriers, and they can complement on-street routes, and they can facilitate long distance commuting. The image that I've provided here is a concept sketch of the Barton to Vandermeer connection. And this is a project that Parks is leading, but when you consider the fact that this is part of the border to border trail, it really fits into that long distance commuting concept. That was a lot of information. If anyone has a question that they're really dying to ask right now, I'd like to go ahead and give folks a moment, and then we can go on to the implementing side of things.
Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. It helps to see why some streets are treated a certain way and why others are treated differently, especially how they're divided. I had a question related to the plans for the next separated two-way cycle track, which is Miller. What would Miller be considered in this? Would it be considered a major street, and is that why we're considering it for a separated facility?
That's a great question. Yes, Miller is considered to be a major street, all ages and abilities connection. And so in the design process for Miller, we looked at a lot of different options for how to fulfill that goal. And the first choice, well, I don't know if I want to say the first choice. We looked at, can you protect in same line travel? And we looked at, could we elevate? And we looked at, does it make more sense to continue the two-way cycle track from downtown towards the edge of limits? And on a project like Miller, where you have a really constrained right of way, and you don't have a lot of width in the right of way, you have even less width in the physical street. When you're not working on a complete reconstruction, then that's part of the constraints that you're looking at. But that's why Miller has a two-way cycle track design, because it is a corridor that we want to have that higher level design in.
I really appreciate all the thought that you guys put into that, because it's obvious that a lot of different options were considered, and that from an engineering standpoint, I feel like what the plan ended up being over the course of many, many months of input is really good, and I look forward to it. One of my big complaints for the protected network that we have so far is just that it's not enough, and it doesn't touch on our major streets because it's kind of bounded by the DDA area. So to have this start to become a reality, hopefully with this and the project we just heard about, gathering data on the other major corridors, hopefully we can see more of a complete network starting to develop. So I really appreciate your work on it.
Kate.
Hi, Cynthia. Thank you so much for the presentation and all the work and thought that goes into this. And this will probably be something that I talk about often in these meetings, but I do struggle a lot with the treatments with regard to minor streets, if I'm remembering the verbiage correctly. And I recognize we can't have an entirely separated bike network, but as someone who's spent 13 years biking with children, when you go through something like the concept of a Sharrows, like that requires a a frontal lobe capacity that my children at 13 and 11 are years away from. So I think I push back against the idea that those facilities are meaningful in terms of allowing for children and other people that, you know, may have certain disabilities or other issues to really utilize those facilities. I know that there is, and I think even this concept of a 25-mile-per-hour street with paint being somehow protective, because if you've ever, you know, biked with a child, they can't go in a straight line. And the paint, again, means nothing to them because they just don't have that level of critical thinking to navigate these things safely. So, you know, what I always fall back on is utilizing sidewalks, and that works pretty well in neighborhoods. I have been screamed at on Main Street for that. So I guess I just want to recognize that while these concepts like make sense on some level, in practice, it doesn't in my mind really create that kind of network. I think same thing for, like, I think about someone in a wheelchair trying to use a Packard, you know, separated lane with paint. Like that would be the least safe thing I could imagine. So just wanted to bring that up and you know, not to be critical, but just to be thoughtful about, you know, what applications are actually going to make us achieve our goal of having a truly connected network that is for all ages and abilities.
Yeah, and those are great questions. And I think part of it is really understanding the where some of these facilities could possibly be. And when we're really looking at the network, and some of it is a lot of those types of facilities, some more of those are really lower volume streets, lower speed streets that we would expect to see like more in some neighborhoods in some places because they are those lower speed and those lower volume. And when, I mean, I do understand that all ages and abilities is, as a concept, is to get as many people incorporated into the design as possible, but there will be some individuals who will still need to use something like a sidewalk route, especially as we're, you know, thinking about cognitive abilities where individuals are not yet able to process like vehicle speeds and those sorts of things. So I do appreciate that perspective. Being a mother who's cycled with my children as well, I do understand and appreciate that.
Rachel.
Yeah, I want to underscore, you know, I really appreciate the way that this is categorized. And I do think that for the average cyclist, it is totally sensible. And I want to just kind of build off of Kate's comment that certainly there are places where various types of cyclists will need to use the sidewalk network instead of using, you know, a Sharrows or things like that. And I am wondering if, as you are creating these concepts and thinking about the city's plans for implementing them, how you are thinking about the sidewalk network as integrated into all ages and ability cycling infrastructure. You know, I'm sure, just like Kate, I have many stories of being screamed at both on the road and on the sidewalk. That is certainly like a cultural and an education issue that, you know, there are lots of things that we can all be doing to support. And then there's also, you know, maintenance of both the bicycle facilities and the sidewalk network that facilitates that the ability of folks of varying ages and abilities to, you know, get from place to place on a bike. You know, that's both, you know, that's everything from like, you know, surfacing to snow and ice removal. And I think that, yeah, I would love to hear if that's something, if you were thinking about those things together when when you think about how this infrastructure will be utilized by people of varying ages and abilities.
So if I may, Commissioner Jacobson, I'm going to parking lot those questions because I think walking through our example is going to help illustrate some of them. And if when we get through our example, I have not answered them as fully as you'd like, let's circle back around to it. The next thing that I wanted to cover was as part of how, this is great. How do we implement it? So as the slides reads, what are our strategies? And we all need to work together, and it takes all 6 of our E's to evaluate, to implement our plan. But this particular strategy is really part of engineering, part of transportation. And we are not looking as much at, well, evaluation is part of it, but not as much on the education, the encouragement, the equity, and the enforcement E's. We have 8 general program areas that we're really looking at, responsible for. The first one is behavior change. The second is the speed management program. The next is the street reconfiguration or road diet, street reconfiguration for intersections or other, and our quick build program, our capital investment, our messaging campaigns, and our education and enforcement campaigns that we're working on. Implementing cycling and cycling changes, really, it could be part of a speed management choice. It could be part of a street reconfiguration. It could be part of a quick build. Our example that I'm going to give is part of our capital investment because it is Fifth Avenue. But this example will also touch on our speed management program. So our design example, and we just have an image here that represents capital investment. Our slide reads design example, Fifth Avenue, water main and resurfacing. So we have water main replacement that's going on. We have resurfacing of pavement that's going on. And as we started the design for this particular project, we had an ongoing downtown circulation study that was influencing some of our outcomes. I wanted to start with some existing conditions. This project is for Fifth Avenue, and it runs from William to Madison. Our first block is William to Packard. Existing conditions are 2 southbound vehicle lanes, 1 southbound cycling lane, no parking, 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, and it's a Tier 2 safety corridor. The next block is Packard to Madison, and this is 1 southbound vehicle lane. We have intermittent parking on both sides of the street and a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit, and it is also a Tier 2 safety corridor. And I have images accompanying both of these slides of what the street looks like. Our next slide reads original project objectives. So originally we wanted to work within the existing footprint of the street. That project objective has not changed. We were focusing on making minimal changes pending the outcome of possible 2-way conversion analysis. So converting the street from 1-way traffic to 2-way traffic along with its partner corridor, which is Division. We really wanted to support residential connection to the high comfort cycling ring downtown. And part of what we were looking at, and this goes to the sidewalk question, we know that individuals are using this section of Fifth to get to the Williams cycle track and to get into downtown. And so they're currently doing that on the sidewalk. With that sidewalk being limited width, that's not comfortable for either cyclists or pedestrians. So we're really interested in making that connection. And ultimately, we also wanted to slow traffic on Fifth through cross-sectional changes. A little bit of background data that we had. We have data that we collected for one of our HPMS locations, and that is between Liberty and William on 5th. HPMS stands for Highway Performance Monitoring System. It's not an acronym you necessarily need to remember, but it's a place that we regularly take count data at. Our average speed in that location is 23 miles per hour. Our 85th percentile speed, so if you think of it as a normal curve distribution, that 85th percentile is where we look to see are people behaving in a manner that we want them to behave or not. So the 85th percentile speed is 28 miles per hour, which is above where we want the 85th percentile speed, because we really do want that to be a little bit lower. And our average daily traffic out here is 3,491. So that left us with a design level of minor streets. Now, as we were looking at implementing this, moving on to the next slide, a little bit more about our original project design. We wanted to tighten up this cross-section for vehicles as much as we could to really sort of narrow things. So we selected a 10-foot vehicular lane, and then looking at getting 6 feet of bike lanes in here and a narrow buffer for both the southbound and the northbound bike lanes. So they both have about a 2-foot buffer on that. As we work through this design process, we heard more about speeds and started to look at speeds a little bit more. And we've gotten to a point with the downtown circulation study where we really understand that project implementation isn't going to be happening as early as we thought it might. We have enough analysis that we know we need to see a little bit of a traveled reduction to be able to implement those successfully without negatively impacting our transit provider. And with that being said, we are currently looking at implementing more speed management in this corridor. And what we know from our volume is that we do not need 2 lanes to service the volume that is on 5th, particularly south of William. As going south of William, if we have close to 3,500 north of William, we have a lot of traffic that turns off of 5th at that point, and we have even fewer trips south of William. So if 1 lane will service that volume, 1 lane will service less than that volume. So we are, as the slide reads, new project information, the 2-way conversion needs a bit of a VMT reduction to be successful, particularly as it applies to our transit provider. And we've already had an opportunity to speak with the Ann Arbor Fire Department about can we explore this option where we're taking away a southbound vehicle lane between Packard and William to create a parking lane that would be a floating parking lane, and learning from the lessons of the last floating parking lane that we implemented in the near downtown area. Learning from that, being able to provide more space for solid waste service, and even maybe possibly putting in some parking restrictions on service days, but also creating a vertical element to help motorists have something physical to line up for their parking. creating a little bit of a wider vehicle lane to accommodate the parking vehicles, and probably not much of a buffer for the southbound bike lane, but we're looking at a 3-foot buffer for that northbound bike lane to keep the cyclists out of the Doring area. I will point out that this lovely image that I threw together in Street Mix does not have any yellow pavement markings on the buffer between southbound and northbound, and that is just because the free version doesn't want me to do that. But where the yellow bollards would be yellow pavement markings because there are different directions to travel. So back to some of those parking lot questions. Do we consider sidewalks? Sidewalks that are designed to be shared paths are definitely part of the network. When we know that we have a lot of cyclists on a narrower sidewalk, we want to try to provide an alternative for them. There will always be cyclists who are not going to feel comfortable being in the street and would prefer to be on the sidewalk, and they are legally allowed to be in the sidewalk. So we're not designing to prevent that. And in some places, we are designing to support different levels of cyclist desire, right? So think of Plymouth, west of Nixon. And in that area, we have shared use paths that are side paths, and we also have on-street narrow buffered bike lanes for individuals who want to have a little bit more sightline on them. They're traveling a little bit faster. They want to be able to travel a little faster and have better sightlines at driveways and those sorts of things. So sometimes we're able to provide for 2 different levels of cyclists in one corridor. But we are definitely looking at those types of concerns as we are designing. That was also a lot of information. Before I open it back up to questions, I just wanted to touch on what our next steps would be for this particular project. We still have some internal stakeholders to engage with. And, you know, we really need to make sure that we can design to meet all the needs that are functioning in the corridor. And we want to, we'll need to finalize that design and determine the feasibility of the design, if it's going to work. And then we'll be communicating the final design out to the public. And we're going to be building an Engage Ann Arbor page for that. One of our plans is to capitalize on the community questions feature of that so that we can keep that open and continue to have conversation with the public, especially after it opens if individuals have questions about it. That being said, I would love to entertain any questions about cycling design.
Hey.
Hey, Cynthia, I apologize if you already explained why this was and I just missed it. And I'm sure there's a good reason, but can you explain why the bike lanes are on opposite sides of the street as opposed to protecting them both by the parked cars?
Yeah. One of the things to keep in mind about a 2-way cycle track is that it does have some concerns, and one of the largest concerns is getting people into and out of the cycle track. And because that is such a high comfort facility and it has such a high design burden, it has such a high maintenance burden. It's to have 2 parallel routes that are that really high comfort facility is a little bit unusual, but we want to provide as much direct access for cyclists as possible. And yeah, it's also looking at the street and running it through the evaluation and determining what type of facility should go there.
Any other comments or questions? All right, well, as always, thanks for coming back and giving us the refresher in the first part, and then also taking into account comments and questions about the Fifth Avenue design, and then coming back to explain it to us. So I much appreciate it. All right. Look forward to seeing you again, Cynthia. All right. Let's move on then to the fiscal year 2026 policy agenda for local items. Every year we pass along policy and legislation suggestions to the City Council Policy Agenda Committee concerning local and state issues. So we've reviewed the state level policy items back in January. Tonight we'd like to take a look at some local policy items. And then after going through that, at this meeting, hopefully next month, we'll have something that we can vote on to send up to City Council. So Luke, I think you've got this up so far. And start going through these. For the local portion, I guess we can go through one at a time to see what we've got here. But this can be interactive if somebody has comments. Just I'd say make those comments as we're going through this instead of waiting to the end.
Okay, yeah, I'll read them through. They're not too long, but feel free to stop me if there's any comments or changes proposed. First bullet point: strengthen partnerships with community stakeholders to achieve common goals, including but not limited to the Michigan Department of Transportation, Ann Arbor Public Schools, and the University of Michigan. Okay. And next one is prioritize data-driven decision-making at the local level by expanding use of benchmarking and statistical data collection.
Yeah.
Yes.
It might be nice to add what we're thinking of there. Like, what are the critical few that we want to collect data on? So we heard one the other day from in the resolution that was passed by council about how often bike lanes are blocked. We have a resolution that asks to develop those metrics and then report on them. I can think of some other metrics like the conformance to our winter maintenance standard for shoveling. How are we doing on that? It would be good to know. How are we doing in conforming to our crosswalk driver compliance to our crosswalks? So I would like to see some listing of the things that we think are important to make the transportation system as good as possible, and we should be tracking those. So
yeah, crash reporting, speed studies, studies. Yeah, I like that too. A statement around including but not limited to these examples could be useful.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Next one is use access to destinations, for example, access to jobs, food, school, etc., as an evaluation criterion for analysis of transportation investments. Okay. Next one is use bike lane and sidewalk connectivity as an important metric by which to prioritize transportation investments. Following that one expand bicycle purchase incentive program, consider including non-electric bikes. Next one, increase the amount of funding for non-motorized and active transportation projects to better align with our climate and safety goals. Okay. Continue to advocate for local level policy and land use investments that encourage opportunities for transit supported development. So this one has already seen some quite some progress. So
Like
do we still want to keep this one here, or do we want to remove it? Or
I assume this is getting at TC1 is
Yeah.
what you're referring to. Yeah. You know, I think the first few words continue to advocate.
okay.
You know, you know, if there are other opportunities for TC1 to be applied, and you know, as the city is going through a comprehensive plan, redoing that this year, I think it's reasonable to keep it.
Absolutely. Advocate for public transit becoming an increasing competitive alternative to the car by supporting the RIDE's long-range plan for improved services. That's the RIDE 2045 plan. And do this through policies and actions, including the following. Continued advocacy for local level policy and land use investment that encourage opportunities for transit supported development along high frequency transit corridors. Encouragement of all new municipal facilities for the public to be sited along existing transit routes. Okay. Increasing on-time travel on bus routes with transit-only lanes, signals, and other priority measures that prioritize buses. This may include restricting certain streets to transit, pedestrian and bicycle travel only.
If I could interrupt real briefly, Rachel had a good question about state level policy objectives, and is there time or an opportunity to have some comment on those before we vote on them? Remind me, Luke, this is all combined together, right? We haven't already approved the state objectives.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I think it's, especially considering Rachel is you know, new to the commission, I would love to hear her comments on the state objectives, state level objectives. If you wouldn't, if you're open to maybe emailing them to Luke and maybe myself and Kate, Rachel, that way we can maybe work them in and have something more prepared in the document at next month's meeting, so it's easier to vote on it. I just, if it's possible to avoid doing like wordsmithing too much at next month's meeting, it's hard to vote on something when we're doing wordsmithing in the same meeting. So yeah, please, I'd love to see what you have, what your thoughts are on the state level stuff. So yeah, send those along, and that applies to anyone else too. If you have other thoughts that have come up over the last month or two, send those along.
Okay, will do. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you. And yeah, sorry, Luke, go ahead.
No, it's good. Thank you. And also for this year, about our month-to-month arrangement, once we finish this round, our next round actually will be kicked off really soon. So we're talking about around summertime. So we're going to review these two groups of policies again, so that they make like in time into the city's overall policy agenda going out. So. Okay, next one is striving to make transit commuting faster, more convenient, and cheaper than car commuting by restructuring parking fees and increasing bus frequency on routes at the busiest time of day. I see Pete.
Yeah, I'd like to just explicitly say that we should come up with a plan to phase out monthly parking downtown and instead encourage monthly bus pass purchases. Once someone buys a monthly permit to park downtown, they need to use it every day to get their money's worth out of it.
Like that idea, Pete. If anyone objects to it, let us know, but I'd be happy adding that to this.
Thank you. Next one. As bus stops are a public good and a key element in achieving several city goals, removal of permitting fees to the right for the installation and modification of bus stops within city right-of-way and expedition of permitting approval process. Continued coordination for installation of lead walks and other concrete amenities at bus stop locations affected by city road or sidewalk reconstruction projects. Collaboration with the city public works group to remove or avoid creating piles of snow or windrows along the curbs in front of bus stops, as they can become impassable to riders and buses. Next bullet point, take enforcement action to maintain clear bike lanes. This may include launching a bounty program whereby citizens can report infractions.
Is this something that council has made enough progress on for us to remove, do you think? Does anyone have thoughts on that? Do you think we should remove it? Or
they can make a note. So on this one, well, next month we're thinking about having Public Works to come in and give us an update. So, yeah.
Okay.
Next
I mean,
one.
I think this one is, well, I don't know if we can say it's fully implemented yet, but we're certainly working on this.
Yeah. Okay, I'll read that. Next one, ensure that the traffic calming resolution passed in 2023 is put into action and that traffic calming is incorporated into all street resurfacing projects. So this is similar to the one above, that we're setting up the overall guidance document to cover these 2 bullet points.
Yeah, I would just say it's a small thing, but where we say street resurfacing projects, maybe just say all street capital projects. I mean, whether you're, working on a water line or you're doing a reconstruction, or I just want to make sure it's open to anything that could be happening on the street.
Okay. Next one is define how transportation infrastructure is to be used and distinguish the difference between streets, roads, and stroads. This may include development of right-of-way plans and alignment with adjacent land use, especially TC1.
This one's been difficult for me. I don't know how we can check it off to say that it's something that's been accomplished, but does anybody have any comments or thoughts on this one? maybe the background on this intent.
I know the term strolls maybe fly more in the planning circle. In our day-to-day staff interactions with projects among the staff on the fourth floor, we have not really come across this term even once. Okay. All right. If there's any thought, we can always accommodate. Next one is to expand and improve infrastructure and the policy to encourage the use of clean energy vehicles. That includes a couple of sub points, more electric vehicle charge points, create policy for use of four-wheeled light electric vehicles, electrification and downsizing of city-owned vehicles, improve and expand parking facilities for bikes, including covered and lighted parking areas, possible incentives from the city to encourage the use of clean energy vehicles by residents and business. Okay. Second from last, advocate to enable local power grid initiatives required by the A20 plan, which would allow for carbon-free EV charging.
I think we can remove that one, right, with the SCU moving forward. Does that seem right? Or is that, unless this is getting at something else, I don't know. To me, it makes me think of the SCU, which was approved, by voters and the city's moving forward with, but if somebody else has a different understanding what this is the intent here.
Next one is improve winter sidewalk maintenance to ensure walkability and bikeability and accessibility year-round, with emphasis on high pedestrian activity areas in residential areas and those needed to access bus stops. Eric?
Yeah, I just kind of was thinking dovetailing with that last bullet point. I didn't really see anything in the document about continuing to advocate for closing sidewalk gaps. It's definitely something that's been coming up over the last few months, I feel like. So I would maybe put something like advocate to continue closing sidewalk gaps with an emphasis on maybe routes used to, like, safe routes to school, or with the mind to improve pedestrian safety, because we definitely are still, even though we have the sidewalk millage, we're still in a constant conversation about sidewalks and making sure that kids do have them, because there's a lot of gaps in the city.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good with that being there. Anything else, Eric?
No, that was it.
All right, Rachel?
Oh yeah, I was just I'm glad you mentioned that, Eric, and I would just advocate for us to move those last two bullet points further up. I think that, it's a small thing, but making sure that, as we think about vulnerability of users that, users with a higher level of vulnerability are kind of prioritized in the list. So that would be one thing to consider. The other thing I don't see on here, and I don't know if this has been a discussion amongst the commission, but anything about micromobility and just like building out the local policy landscape to ensure like safe and accessible, like mostly that micromobility users are safe with scooters and things like that. But yeah.
I think we have, there was a subcommittee, what, like 3, 4 years ago, I don't know if you remember, Luke, that I believe addressed this. But you know, that why don't we make sure that, and honestly, maybe it's it could be an agenda topic just to have a refresher on what the policy is, because it was a number of years ago. But is there anything that council should act on that's in that policy, I guess is a good question. The policy, I'm sure, has, you know, memory serves, it has recommendations and some guidelines, but maybe we need to review it to see if there's anything that needs to go through council more formally.
That makes sense.
I know that the spin scooter contract is almost like on a month-to-month right now, because they had some kind of like year-long contract that was not renewed, and
Yeah.
now they've been doing it like as a 3-month contract or something with city council. So I'm not sure if that's something we need to advocate for, or if anybody has strong opinions on spin scooters. I certainly don't, but
Yeah, that one is right now on 3. The attorney's office is working on another, I guess, month or 3-month renewal. And the goal is to establish a year-long, maybe a longer-term contract after this next renewal.
I can
Okay.
speak on that very quickly. The contract is currently being routed for final execution, pending signatures from city management.
so I don't think we need to put anything about the contract in here, but the micromobility user safety, I think that maybe we can just revisit what we passed a few years ago, but I remember it being very comprehensive and subject of a lot of thought.
All right, Pete.
So I do have strong opinions about the spin contract, and Rachel, I'm glad you brought it up. And I think it's worth adding to this document that we want to pursue micromobility partnerships with partners who are prioritizing safety. And I'm not exactly sure how to say that, but I will also come right out and say, as I have on other occasions, that spin is not prioritizing safety, and they have a business model, I think, that is that encourages people to do unsafe things. So they are not listening to us about things that they could do to make their operations safer. And I think it's worth putting that in this document, that that's something that we want.
Okay. Eric?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. This certainly isn't the last opportunity to get anything into this document. Again, like I said, please email us, you know, Christopher, Luke, myself, and Kate, with any other comments, or, you know, as you think of things over the next few weeks. And we'll have hopefully something to vote on next month to send to council. So thank you. All right, Luke, I think you're still up in terms of sharing your screen for the staff report portion.
Yo. Okay. So this is a document in the packet. In the first group for transportation planning studies and initiatives, where they talk about the street reconfiguration project, state trunk line jurisdictional transfer, same state status as last month, minor movement. MDOT is looking to set up regular meetings with city staff. So that's the only update. We already covered the micro mobility Chris give the latest status on the contract extension. Next one is road safety audit around the block defined by the 3 streets here: Ann Street, Catherine, Glen, and Zena Pitcher. So this is a grant award by SEMCOG to conduct road safety audit, and staff is routing this contract for signature. Chris, you can update me if you already received the signature. So, okay. Speed management program, that's the draft document. We had the first meeting with this commission's committee on traffic calming, and we're setting up regular meetings, working meetings with the committee, and the first one will start near the end of this month. The next group is projects that are being designed right now. First one is sidewalk gap projects. The work for Barton Drive, this project has been postponed for the time being. And the reason is that there's insufficient public right-of-way along the north side of Barton Drive. Then we heard comments in support of filling in the sidewalk gap along Brockman and the Crestland. The other two on the list, one is in the Apple Pear area. The next one is along Dexter Avenue from Maple to Ironwood. Next project in design is Safe Street for All. This is the portion of the grant that covers speed management treatment and quick build of bicycle lanes. In addition to what's shown here, there are some latest development on this one. Staff has submitted an environmental review to Federal Highway, which is now requiring the final clearance from the DC of Federal Highway. So there is a delay in that. So it's very likely that this portion of the Safe Street for All grant will be paused for at this moment until we receive the clearance on NEPA approval, and then we can restart this effort. So if that is the case, the pause will start around the end of this month. MDOT traffic signal modernization along Huron and the Wash Tunnel from State to Palmer. This one, staff had a design kickoff, and the construction is late 2027 to early 2028. I see there's a question. Eric, please.
Yeah, I just noticed that there wasn't really an update on the quiet zone for the railway this month, and I was wondering if there was any changes at all.
Correct. Not on this. I can quickly touch up on that. That one, the university and the consultant SRF is finalizing the study report, and so the final report is being prepared to provide the understanding of, in regard to minimally required improvement, and what is also critical to the safety of active modes, because the quiet zone process, the requirement does not have anything for people on bike or on foot. So that is something that's being worked on at this moment. The next group, construction projects, 2025 street resurfacing. We talked about Fifth Avenue. There are other projects, and construction will start in April. Sidewalk gap projects, 3 of them: Independence Boulevard, Sequoia Parkway, and Whitewood Street. Okay. East Medical Center Drive bridge construction project. Current schedule of the construction is going to continue through the June of this year. Miller Avenue, we had some discussion about that today. And construction is starting this week or next week, so it's very soon. Fiscal year 25 crosswalk improvement. We are planning on installing 5 crosswalks, 3 along Stone School and 1 at Beeks at North Fifth, and the 5th one at South Church and Chaucer. And construction is also going to start along Jackson and Huron to provide 4 mid-block crossings. At this moment, staff is looking into some utility conflict at some of these locations and planning to start the construction as soon as those conflicts are resolved. State Street from William to South University. This is when we looked at the alternative cross-section last meeting or the meeting before. Construction will occur this year. Okay. Nixon Road construction. Phase 1 of the construction between Huron Parkway and the Blewett is scheduled to start in the May of this year. Pauline water main and resurfacing. This project is going to start in April. Okay. Pittsfield Village improvement. This one construction is going to start in April of this year. Okay. 5th Avenue, we covered that earlier. And miscellaneous utilities project. We had a lot of discussion and revised work regarding the Harding and Wallingford intersection. So construction is also going to happen this year. I don't have the exact month at this point. The other portion of Safe Street for All grant is the near miss analytics. And this portion of the work, the environmental clearance was already cleared last year. So this work is proceeding without impact. Streetlight implementation. So far in this calendar year, DTE has reported that they fixed 226 streetlights. For neighborhood traffic calming construction and evaluation, this year we're expecting to have at least 3 construction projects. Bird, Henry, and Arella. Those are for sure in this year. And Mershon is also expected to be in 2025, and same as Warden. And these 2, for Mershon and Warden, very likely they will be in the current calendar year, but they will happen later in the new fiscal year that starts in July. Right now, staff is working on the evaluation for 3 more petitions: Carmel, Brandywine, and Doty. So once these 3 evaluation projects are complete, we plan to kick off our first neighborhood traffic calming petition. So all the projects listed here are the sequence that staff will plan on constructing or evaluating. Moving on to talk about flashing yellow arrow conversions to cancel the flashing yellow arrow when there is pedestrian calling the service. This month, we do not have update in this category. We're doing bench testing on controller firmware, which is required for some of the remaining intersections to be complete. Okay. And for this month, our summary for reported pedestrian crash, we have a total of 4 of them in February. There's one A-level injury. We received a comment on that earlier at this meeting. There's another one resolved in B-level injury. There's one that's property damage only. And there's a 4th one we don't have confirmed information on that. As to reported bicycle involved crashes, we do not have any in February. So that wraps up the report.
Thank you. All right, next section is are the liaison reports. So any commissioners who serve as a liaison to another body or organization are invited to provide a brief report now. If there are any. All right, seeing none, move on to commission member communications. So this is an opportunity for all commission members to provide any reports or updates if they have anything they'd like to address at this time. All right, call for agenda items. Luke, want to go through what we can expect to see in the next meeting or two?
Absolutely. So far, I guess pending approval with the chair and vice chair in our agenda session, we're thinking about bring winter maintenance update to next month meeting. Other potential topics, maybe next month, maybe in the future, we have a capital project update. So that's gonna bring more details for Nixon Road construction and the design for North University Avenue. We also consider about speed management program update. So after we have a couple of meetings with the subcommittee on that topic, once the working draft is ready, we'll bring that to the commission meeting to provide a report on that. A quiet zone study update. So it feels this one is coming sooner. So we don't know if we're going to bring that one in the month of April, but it shouldn't be too far away to provide a detailed update on that. So that's all I have on the list for now.
And of course, as always, if anyone has any ideas for future agenda topics, just send us an email. All right. The next meeting will be held on Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 at 7 p.m. That will also be a virtual meeting. And if there are no objections, we'll adjourn our March 19th meeting. Seeing no objections, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night. Thank you, everyone.